that would guarantee that the civil rights of every single Californian is respected. AB 1563 would centralize and standardize application processing and issuance, making it vastly easier to apply. Right now, you go to a sheriff, and you have to go through a whole process, most of which is processed by the California Department of Justice. This process will allow you to go to any live scan where you get all the other permits you get from the California Department of Justice. And that would make it much more accessible to people who might not live close to their sheriff, who might live in a huge county. AB 1563 would further allow out-of-state residents to apply for a California concealed carry. AB 1563 would guarantee that eligible applicants who pass a background check, the same background check, we don't change any of that, would receive their license within 30 days, or 60 days for out-of-state residents. That's really important, because if it's not done in a timely fashion, then you don't have that right. AB 1563 would eliminate Byzantine local application processes. It would eliminate the fact that so many people are denied who are not politically connected. It would eliminate the capricious nature of the process that affects those who are really the most vulnerable, those who are the least among us, those who don't know somebody and therefore, or in some cases in the past, don't have the wherewithal to financially support a sheriff. And we've seen that. We've actually had sheriffs go to jail for that. And I think we should eliminate that, and we should make the right to keep and bear arms, the right to defend your life, we should protect that as a constitutional civil right. This would preempt local rules on the unlawful carry, handguns for self-defense in non-sensitive places. It would extend the period for which you have the license to 5 years instead of 2. That would reduce costs on law-abiding gun owners. That's an important consideration, especially for people who are low income, who want to enjoy the same right to defend their lives and their families that people who are more affluent enjoy today. AB 1563 would provide real due process by mandating an appeals process for denied applicants. It would make California concealed carry license applications and licenses issued consistent with many other shall-issue states. AB 1563 would be the largest overhaul of California carry licenses since their inception in 1923. I would ask you to vote to expand and extend civil rights beyond the borders of individual counties. And I was handed a color graphic. I wish I had copies. But you can see in red where these are the counties where virtually no concealed carry permits are handed out. The red is from 0 to 0.46%. So we have a significant number of Californians who are denied their civil rights right now. Their civil right to defend their own lives that has been defended in the Supreme Court. And I believe it's time that we change the process, standardize it, and guarantee those rights for all Californians. And I would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, sir. You have witnesses in support.
I do.
Witnesses, you may.
This bill is really about equality in the school. Our fundamental civil rights have been denied since 1923, and have been particularly since 1967, when California signed into law the Mold Act. There exists today no real way to exercise your fundamental right to protect your life and property. AB 1563 corrects nearly a century of constitutional law. It creates a uniform process. Takes away the power of local authorities to to issue or deny on subjective grounds. By issuing licenses within 30 days, it creates a clear mandate that, and by the way, an enforceable mandate, that would provide for timely due process of applications for the exercise of a fundamental right. For example, in Sacramento County, we have a virtual shell issue county, but it could take nearly a year for someone just to apply, let alone be issued. The process can take 90 days or sometimes 180 days. So we're really talking about 1 to possibly 2 years of time before somebody can exercise their civil rights. That's simply wrong. In Riverside County, for example, there are only 771 licensees in 2013, according to the Department of Justice. That represents 0.04% of the population. At 1%, there would be 17,000 licenses, and at the national standard of 4%, there would be nearly 70,000. The bottom line is that following the Peruta decision, local authorities have no discretion. There will not be the ability for them to subjectively judge good cause and good voluntarism. At that point, they are simply performing ministerial tasks.
We're going to need you to conclude, sir.
If they're simply performing ministerial tasks, we think our peace officers should be fighting crime and not pushing paperwork to the Department of Justice. Thank you.
Further witnesses in support made in affiliation.
Jerry, Department of California, in response to Second Amendment orders. First,
Thank you, sir.
I'm also a member of the Libertarian Party of California, and I'm remembering that Peruta cases that I should have already participated in.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, so let me say one thing. Brian, it took me a long time.
I know, sir, but we have our rules. Everyone has to obey them, otherwise we'll give you records.
Okay.
Please step away from the mic and let someone else.
Put me on the seat, you can see me.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, my name is David Powell with Californians Opposing Gun Restrictions. I'm also here from Vern Mornoth. I can't pronounce his last name. He was here earlier to support this bill.
Thank you.
Also, please support the Constitution. We will vote you out
All right,
if you do that.
please don't take advantage.
Californians Opposing Gun Restrictions. Phoenix Silver, California, and I support
They're serving on California business owner and unsupported 1563. Thank you.
My name is Gene Bell. I'm a private citizen. I support AB 1563.
There is what each other county and support it.
California and support.
Nicholas Stone, Colorado County support.
I'm Wanda Gaines, Colorado County. I'm the mother of a disabled child who cannot defend herself, as well as the owner of Kennel Queen, and I support the bill.
Samuel Worsham, Eola County resident, I support it. Davis from Casino County, I support the bill.
Lori Jacobs, Duke County. I'm in support of the bill.
Natalie Davis from Alameda County, I support. Kim Davis, Mendocino. I live in the rural area and I support 1563.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further witnesses in support? All right, seeing none, witnesses in opposition.
Adams County Sheriff. Can I hold this? I just can't do this. I zoomed in by accident.
Good morning, Chair Amiano, members of the committee. My name is Nick Wilcox. I'm representing the California chapters of Brady Campaign.
Of course.
We're in strong opposition to this bill. current California law on the issue of concealed carry permit issuance. We believe that the current law, which requires a local law enforcement official, either a chief or in most cases a sheriff, to find that the applicant is of good moral character and has good cause is an appropriate standard, and we think that should continue. If this bill were to be adopted, it would result in an explosion in CCW permits in our state. I have to tell you that the research on this is becoming quite clear that states with permissive or shall issue conceal and carry laws are not safer than states that have may issue the may issue standard. So the whole concept that this law will provide for additional public safety is pure nonsense and not supported by the facts. I would argue that some of the other states, such as Florida, represent a natural experiment in this area. In Florida, apparently, if you're carrying Skittles or iced tea from the store,
Oh my God.
or if you are texting in a movie theater, or if you're playing loud music in a gas station,
They just pulled the race card. Amazing.
Killed for that by somebody carrying a CCW permit. We don't want that to happen in this state. I would agree with Mr. Donnelly that the standards in this state are somewhat inconsistently applied. We would actually urge there be some consistency introduced into this. We believe that every county should have to find that a good cause exists, and I urge your no vote on this bill. Thank you very much.
Further witnesses in opposition?
Amanda Wilcox, I'm president of the Nevada County chapter of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. I have sat in this committee through the years as various bills to loosen our CCW laws have come forward before this committee. And law enforcement has stated time and time again that they need the discretion, that passing a background check is not enough in determining who should carry a loaded, hidden gun in public. Someone can pass a background check but still have anger issues, still have an alcohol problem. The local law enforcement knows their community, knows their individuals, and know who really should not be walking around in public, putting all of us at risk with a loaded, hidden gun. It's up to what someone wants to do in their home, but when it comes to carrying a gun in public, that does put other people at risk, and I urge you to oppose this bill.
Thank you very much. Any further witnesses in opposition? Name and affiliation.
Ken James, Chief of Police of the Emeryville Police Department, and I oppose this bill.
Thank you. Further witnesses in opposition? All right, seeing none, the matter is in the hands of the committee. Any action, comments, or questions for the director? Okay. All right, the bill has been moved and seconded, and Ms. Landis has a comment, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Donnelly, I have received a lot of calls and emails about this bill on both sides, frankly. What I like about this bill is that it would make the state a shall issue state. I look at this chart here that you provided with me, which I can barely read with that glasses, but if I squint, I can see my county on there. And it's disappointing to see the trend with some of these counties in decline in concealed carry permits. The notion that states that have citizens armed more than other states does not deter crime, I'm sorry, but I wholeheartedly disagree with that witness's statement. That is completely incorrect. The facts bear out the analysis and the data bear out that is in fact not true. But that's not what we're arguing today. So here's the part of your bill I don't like. You're putting the responsibility for issuing a concealed carry permit, you're taking that from the hands of local county sheriffs, who, judging by this chart, many are inclined to issue these permits, and you're switching it to the Attorney General's office under the DOJ, who may very well not be inclined to issue these permits. And I've spoken with some of your folks who are in support of this bill, and they've assured me that if we change the law, that won't be the case, but I'm here to tell you that I think it may be, because the rules can then change to, you can only get your permit, you can apply for it, only at these 3 locations in the state, and only at this time, and only on these days of the week, and the cost can go up, the amount of training can go up, all those things could be in play. That concerns me, because we have county sheriffs right now who are very willing to issue concealed carry permits, and if we take that away from them, less may be issued because of that. That being said, I believe the state should be a shall issue state. I believe that some of these county sheriffs, right, are withholding based on political preference or whatever the issue may be. So my desire to support this bill outweighs my concerns with the latter part of the bill. So I want to support your bill today.
All right, thank you, Mr. Quirk, and then Ms. Waldron.
Could the Brady campaign come back to the desk? I do not feel safer when I know there are people with concealed weapons. I've heard about what's happening in Florida. It scares me. I'm going to ask for some statistics. I'm aware that the counties that have the most guns are those with the most gun deaths, usually from suicide. Perhaps do you have some other statistics that you might bring forward?
Perhaps another way of looking at it is comparing states with high gun ownership and shall issue versus states with low gun ownership and may issue. And when you look at those states, you can group them so that populations are fairly evenly controlled. And when you look at groups like that, those states that are may issue and with relatively strong gun laws and relatively low firearm ownership rates, much lower homicide rates.
Thank you. That's all I need to hear.
All right, Ms. Waldron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I wanted to reiterate the concern. I do support shall issue, but I do have the concern of taking it away from local sheriffs who are elected by their districts. So that was just a concern I wanted to put on the record. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, Mr. Donnelly, the bill has been moved and seconded, and you've had a very eloquent opening, and would you like to close as briefly as you can?
I will have a very eloquent and brief close to address a couple of the issues raised. As far as the notion that we are safer in areas where guns are essentially banned, I give you Washington, D.C. When I visited Washington, D.C. with my family years ago, the very first half hour of the newscast was who was murdered that day by a gun. So somebody had guns, but it certainly wasn't the citizens because they were not allowed. But when you see of the 41 states that are now opting in for this kind of a system, places like Chicago, that was the murder capital of this country for a time, it's now going down because more and more people are able to exercise their right to fundamentally defend their life in public. And this is not about whether we want to grant discretion to somebody in law enforcement. And I understand my colleagues who are saying that because in many counties there are those who are inclined to support my viewpoint. But the Constitution is not about it's not about politics. Your civil rights should not end at the border of the county, and they shouldn't stop when you come back into the state of California. We don't have slaughters going on in states where we have shall issue. We just don't. It's simply not true. But almost everywhere that it has been made easier to obtain a CCW, crime has gone down. It's that simple. So I believe that this bill, yes, it is a complete replacement of our current policy, which has denied the civil right of self-defense to those who live in the poorest neighborhoods, to those who are in crime-ridden areas, especially as we're dumping criminals back onto the streets, and crime is going up in California. So I would ask you to not deny the least among us. This bill caps the cost to get one of these at $100, so you're not having to shell out a ton of money. I've tried to address every concern and balance it so that it's something that people can support. I appreciate your consideration and ask for my vote.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. All right, the bill is being seconded. There is, chair recommends no. We can have a roll call, please.
Amiano?
No.
Amiano, no. Melendez? Melendez, aye. Jones Sawyer? No. Jones Sawyer, no. Quirk?
No.
Quirk, no. Skinner? No. Skinner, no. Stone? Waldron? Waldron, aye.
The bill fails. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly, and Mr. Salas, you're up next.